Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, forwards, midfielders, defenders, goalies, coaches, and yes, even referees, welcome to the longest running soccer show in St. Louis history, STL United Soccer Sunday, presented by the Pastor House, a St. Louis tradition. Today's show is brought to you by our friend Mark Niemeyer at NGK Law Firm. Remember, everyone needs a lawyer sometime. Russell here today, joined by our wizard reporter Josh McGee, producer extraordinaire Super Ted Williams, Edmundo bringing us tunes on the guitar, and here is your host, the irrepressible Mr. Thomas Schwartz.
Thank you, Russell Bly, with my selfie stick in hand. All right, here we go again. I'm going to move this over just a tad here. Okay, welcome you back to, what are we calling this? Soccer Sunday. Still so far, so good. You know, how great is it to be, special shout out to Hiko Yamamoto and Jim Hershey, our friends overseas. Russell, Josh, how great was it? That's not working quite like I thought it would. How great was it having Premier League this week?
It's been great.
Fantastic.
And all the games matter. I don't know. Is anybody keeping up with Newcastle, West Ham?
Right here.
Russell's got
1-1 on the 62nd minute.
1-1. That's great. I have just loved this. I've loved. Here we're having. All right, great. I've thoroughly enjoyed. I can't believe how much I missed it till I started watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and I think we'll get the same pains of one of our guests later on, but I think that whole no crowds pandemic situation, at least for me, is kind of worn off. I'm engrossed in the action, and you don't really notice what's all going on outside of it because the action is still so good on the field. The players are in shape, and the action's been great. And like you said, Tom, we still got so much to play for.
Every game.
I
mean, I follow West Ham, right? I mean, I know you weren't so happy when they lost to Chelsea, when they beat Chelsea, but what a huge difference 3 points makes. They had to give them hope. If they get a draw today, it gives them more hope. I don't know if you're going to need 40 points. You're going to need 40 points this year to survive.
I mean, they usually say 39, but 40 looks like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, what a great season, though. What a great season.
It's certainly going to take a couple more wins. Looking at their schedule going forward, they've got a couple of good fixtures in this upcoming week. I believe they're playing. I think it's Norwich is one of them, which Norwich on the road, and then they're playing Burnley at home. So
Burnley.
You think about that. If they pick up the wins there, then with like roughly 4 matches to play or so, they should be feeling pretty good about themselves. After this past week at the bottom, I've identified 2 teams that I feel like are pretty much locks to go down at this point.
Norwich, obviously.
Norwich has been obvious, and after this week's, how they played, it's even further from the truth. They haven't won a match since. The other team also, there's been a few teams that haven't won a match yet, but another team is Bournemouth, too.
I think Bournemouth's in trouble.
After Saturday's performance, I believe they've conceded 12 goals in the 4 matches since they've been back for an average of 3 goals per match. That's not going to get you.
5-2 doesn't help much.
Exactly. So they haven't won a match since they've gotten back, and they're in the spot right above Norwich. So, I mean, I'm feeling pretty good that those are 2 of the teams that we've seen down, both with the same problems, really. Both are having trouble scoring, even though they've been pretty good, decent offensive teams in the past few years.
Also, defensively.
The worst part being the defense, obviously. Yeah. They just can't stop anybody. I mean.
So then what are you looking at? You're looking at Aston Villa. You're looking at West Ham maybe in trouble.
And you're looking at Watford.
And you're looking at Watford. Boy, how big is that win of Watford over Liverpool for them?
It's important right now, but they need to put some more wins.
They need more.
They're saying since then, I don't think they've won a match since that match.
They have, I think, a tough schedule too.
Correct. And then Aston Villa this week, obviously they're playing Liverpool today, later on today. Yeah. Tough task for them, but right now, points are at a premium. You've seen Brighton able to pick up a couple wins, and now I feel pretty confident in saying that they're looking pretty good safe-wise. They started out right there with all these other teams. Yeah. So really 1 or 2 wins makes a difference. And West Ham put a little bit of breathing space between them with that huge win on Wednesday versus Chelsea. I mean, even without those without that context, it was a rivalry match. It was a London derby, and they came ready to play. They were at home, and credit to them. While their system hadn't been working in matches past, they were able to put something together. They got it done.
Quick shout out, Zoom. Yo, Fluff, what up? And Josh continues.
So, no, I think that bottom race is heating up, and obviously the Champions League race
Champions League race, that's pretty hot as well.
has been fantastic. I mean, we're looking at 4 teams right now competing for 2 spots, and of course we still don't know what 5th place will get you, but I don't think teams can think like that right now. You've got Manchester United surging. As much as I've always loved to pile on them, Russell, I can't help but...
They're playing really, really well right now.
They're playing really good offensively.
God,
It's
Bruno Fernandes.
And Pogba, I mean, yeah.
Okay, Josh,
Fernandes is on fire.
tell me about Bruno Fernandes.
So Bruno
Where's
Fernandes
he from?
He's from Portugal.
Ding, 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 ding.
Ding, ding, ding,
Newcastle
ding, ding.
United 1, West Ham United 2.
Woo!
Hammer time.
That's what I'm talking about. Come on, you Irons.
Huge
Is that
goal.
game in Newcastle, right?
Right off the corner.
Yeah,
Yes,
he's in
at
Newcastle.
Newcastle.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
Good stuff. Bruno Fernandes was bought in January by United. Played a few matches. Was looking pretty good, but since
Was he a big star in Portugal?
not a huge star, no. But I mean, he was a good player. I mean, worth the price that United paid
Boy,
for him.
you talk about fitting into a system.
But since the restart, I think it's been made on Twitter, between him and Christian Pulisic, there are no better players since the restart. He has completely revolutionized the United attack from set pieces, from transition.
And did you see what he did
Everything.
yesterday? Rashford hadn't scored since January. Bruno Fernandes has not missed a PK. He made Rashford take the PK.
Correct. And I mean, Rashford's a pretty good penalty taker himself, but it's because Bruno's been so hot that he's been the guy, and he's been on everything for them, and it's been working out. You think about it, Anthony Martial, who has been awful,
Awful.
completely different player now.
Yeah, he was like Nani or something.
Playing with
You know?
Fernandes. They have this young striker named Mason Greenwood, who's now putting
Oh,
about 3
my
goals or
Lord.
so,
Well, that's what I
these
mean
past
about
games.
and Paul Pogba.
And Paul Pogba.
Pogba's
So
been-
he was hurt. He didn't play yesterday, I believe. But
Ding, ding, ding,
No,
ding,
he
ding.
played, didn't he?
Newcastle United 2, West Ham United
Ah,
2. My goodness.
turn that damn thing off.
I don't think the game is over yet.
what time are we?
67th minute.
67 minutes. Man.
No,
Plenty of time to go.
3-2. It'll end 3-2.
So yeah, the United takes look great, and that's really put them in strong contention for third even because we've seen Leicester go down a little bit. They
Yeah,
didn't win
but
yesterday, but
they won.
They came back.
they've come back down to earth. We saw Wolves lost for the first time since the restart to Arsenal yesterday. That was a bit of a shocking result
Yeah.
with how good Wolves
They
were
look
playing.
flat.
They did look flat.
They looked flat. Well, Arsenal controlled them well.
And
Exactly.
did you see the kid that scored for Arsenal looked 12?
Yeah.
I mean, he looked like he was 12 years
They
old.
said something about being the youngest Englishman to score for Arsenal since 1983, I believe.
Wow.
18 years old. So.
Well, that's because they didn't have many guys playing, English guys playing for Arsenal.
And then Chelsea were able to bounce back 3-0 on Saturday. So it's very tight. I think it's 6 points between third place and sixth place, where that 14 is. So good races on both halves of the table right now. So it's been a lot of fun. And again, like you said, matches basically every day.
Oh, Lord. And again, important matches. And when does the NBA start?
NBA starts, I believe, at the end of the month. Much in tune with what baseball's doing.
Somehow we managed to avoid talking about Liverpool's thrashing.
Well, I mean, it's early. We've got more to talk about.
We'll come back to
Were
it.
you surprised? Yeah, I was going to
Was
say.
I surprised? No. Actually, if you look
Right.
at possession, it was pretty much even. I mean,
Correct.
the stats were pretty much even.
Well,
just
they
didn't
started strong.
They started strong, but they just didn't have the tenacity to
Right.
continue with the pressing.
Right.
And you know who was missing in that game?
No.
Who didn't show up? I mean, he was there, but he didn't show up on the field.
Who?
Who's the most important player on the Liverpool team?
Firmino?
Firmino. He had a crap game.
Uh,
I don't know if it was.
How do you
I don't know if
care?
it was Man City shut him down well,
yeah.
or whether he just wasn't into the
Man
game.
City looks
Oh, they were sharp.
really
They were
strong.
super sharp.
Isn't it fun to watch teams? Why don't you start a little tune for us? Isn't it fun to watch teams in sync, or is it Brits say on song?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just united now. Fernandes and Pogba. Fernandes brought something extremely special. And you're right, he wasn't spectacular, but he was awfully good.
Yeah.
But with Pogba, and they both brought something out. All of a sudden, Anthony Martial, who's this guy? That goal he scored yesterday from what, 30 yards?
Outside the box, yeah.
Oh my God, it was beautiful.
So what's the setup for the FA Cup semi-finals?
It'd be United versus Chelsea and City versus
Wouldn't the
Arsenal.
Manchester derby be cool in the final?
That would be nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I would like it.
I know, neither of us would like it, but okay, but...
But yes, considering we're not getting another matchup with that.
Exactly, right.
No.
I'd love to see
With
those
both
teams.
teams on form, it would
I'd
be
love
quite
to see
a
that
show.
game. Yeah.
All right. Ted, I'm not keeping track of time very closely here. So, are you ready? So, okay, Ed, play a little music for us. All right. And then we're going to switch to our women's section. And then, Josh, I want to, get you in on this, too. I got this.
All right, George
All right.
is good for 10 o'clock.
All right, good. George Vecsey at 10 o'clock.
Yep, always fun to have him on. So I'm in women's soccer heaven this week. It's not quite World Cup, but it's a much anticipated return. And there was a couple snoozer matches this week. Some of the teams that, let's just be frank, they're not going to be contenders for this Champions Cup title. But you know what? They're out there getting it done. One thing I'm hearing a few rumblings about is the field that they're playing on is the finest quality field turf. It's ultra, top-notch field turf. But they're getting big time rug burns.
Huh.
And that's the perils of it. They really could not play this entire event at Rio Tinto. The field would have just been a mess by the time the event was over. So, no surprise. North Carolina Courage are at the top of the table. They play Chicago Red Stars today. Many teams, like in an event like this, many times a coach in the second match of quote group, everybody's going to advance. It's all about seeding. But many times in the second game of a tournament like this, they'll give their normal lineup a rest. And in some cases, it was a dramatic change. Chicago Red Stars, with the sake of a couple people, put out an entirely different lineup. And that game was one of the snoozers. It was a 0-0 tie. But Rory Dames was proud of his young players for eking out a point.
That one's over there.
Right.
We have no clues.
Hey! So today there's going to be there's possibly going to be some real separation in this table. There's 4 matches in group, and Portland and Chicago, 2 of the quote advance favorites to advance to the semis, are only at 1 point. So it's Courage with 6, 2 wins. It's Utah, the host club, with 4. Houston with 4. Those 2 are the surprise. If you would have predicted it Courage, Thorns, Red Stars, and the Dash and the Royals would have been down with the others. Okay? So today, Courage play Red Stars. I don't see anybody beating the Red Stars. They are so deep. They're just so deep. Jessie McDonald hasn't even played yet. She's nursing a hamstring. So if she is able to play today and she can come on and give them 40 minutes when the other team is gassed, again, they're playing at altitude. They're acclimating, but they're still at altitude, and they're still playing their first matches in a long time. The Courage could just turn them up. And then the other match is the Thorns and who they play?
You got it. Hang on.
I've got it. I had it in my head.
Thorns and Spirit.
Yeah, those 2 teams. Spirit has a nice team. Young team. Rose Lavelle is healthy. I'm telling you what, guys, if she can stay healthy, she's going to be one of the most exciting U.S. women's
So
national
they beat
teams.
the Red Stars, right?
What's that?
They beat the Red Stars.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So they're the team that's the 4.
Yeah.
Red Stars are below.
Yep.
So, the dash, maybe Red Stars have 3 points?
I'd have to look, but yeah.
I have it. Anyway,
Hey, I got a question.
yeah.
Jim Hershey wants to know if we're narrowcasting. What the hell does that mean?
It means we look thin.
What?
It means we look thin.
Oh, thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Are-
So broad is over the
Air.
So you
air.
technically, yes.
Narrow is focused to our followers.
I don't know what that means.
That's like I would be the
Oh, we're
equivalent.
not on AM
That'd be the
radio.
equivalent of like streamers,
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's all we got, Jim.
right? Hi, Jim.
1,500 people, though. Come on, Jim.
Yeah.
Tell your friends in Thailand.
Right.
Tell us soybeaners.
So the current table is Carriage with 6 points, 2 wins. Houston Dash with 1 win, 1 tie, 4 points. Utah 1 win, 1 tie, 4 points. Washington Spirit is the other team. It's in the mix here. So it's Portland and Washington, and it's Spirit and Courage Day. So first match is at 11:30. Second match is at 9. CBS All Access, $5.95, unless you get creative with the VPN like I described last week. I couldn't get it to work, so
And the deal-
$6 for a month-long entertainment,
Not bad.
not bad at all.
And the deal with this is there's 4 preliminary games per team. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. So this is they're going to a third of 4 games. This
Yes.
is getting to be crunch time.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
But it is only for seeding.
Yeah, the teams that had I guess some hope for this event, or hope for this season. The Rain, which are now part of Olympic Lane A's.
Is it rain or
It's Rain.
AIN or E?
E-I-N.
So like the reign of
Yeah,
the
the reign of the
Borgias.
queen.
Or,
Yes.
yeah.
And then Sky Blue, they both have new coaches, new philosophies, new formations, etc. And you know what? The Rain has been more disappointing of the two. But Houston, who I don't know when the last time they scored 3 goals.
It's a great goal last night.
Yeah. But Shea Groom, who is, she's slightly built. She's slender, she's fast, but she gets in there and she just gets the snot knocked out of her all the time. And she's been injured a lot the last 3 years. In fact, the team physio was adjusting her back during the match last night. And I'm sure that
That's what happens when you get the snot knocked out of you.
the turf is not helping
Yeah.
her at all, but they're having fun. They lost their captive, Amber Brooks. They lost Kalia Ojai, which is now Kalia Watts. She married J.J. Watts. And they brought in Shea Groom and Samantha News's sister Christy, who was older than her, who was the better player at one time. And Christy's had a lot of injuries. But Christy, Rachel Daly, and Shea Groom are clicking. And they've had some really spectacular goals. And they're a fun team to watch, and they have a second-year coach, James Clarkson. And I heard an interview this week. Lots of NWSL content. Kudos to those folks. My friend Dan Lauletta has had some long days. They watch a match at 11:30. They do a podcast about that game, write stories. Then at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock Eastern, they're watching games, doing a pod, and writing stories. I mean, he's had some long days.
Edmundo, that kind of sounds like your life these days.
Pretty much, Tom.
Right.
Pretty much.
What shirt do you have on there?
Oh, this is a
IMNBB
a
special.
vintage IMNBB.
Is that Jimmy O'Brien?
It kind of looks like Jimmy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Big
Yeah.
tattoos.
Yeah.
Hey, Ted.
Yeah.
We're on we're getting close to the
George,
and I want to get the scores yet.
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
So you want to
Anyway,
wrap
so-
up?
Yeah, I'm just saying, match at 11:30 and 9 o'clock today. Good matches today. CBS All Access.
2 quick notes. At the Houston Dash game, there was an important visitor.
Yeah,
Ganowski was
right. He's been there the whole time. That was
Okay.
his first. They must have negotiated. Hey, at some point we need you to be on camera,
camera.
and be an interview at
And then,
halftime.
secondly, I hope the reports are wrong, but it sounds like Becky might be out of action for a little bit for Portland. I heard some rumblings that they might be withholding her from playing, unfortunately.
She's got a hit.
So
You know what? Portland is not going to win this event.
no.
So stay healthy, Becky.
One love, Becky. Okay, you want a dong? Oh, here we go. It's a G thing.
That is production quality, baby.
Scores brought to you by Tango in St. Louis. Tango in the time of coronavirus is taking an extended break. At a Malonga, traditional rules called códigos are generally observed. For example, dancers invite each other to dance using the cabeceo, which is a mutual glance and nod of the head before the man approaches a potential dance partner.
I didn't know that.
They enter the dance floor carefully and dance in the ronda, the line of dance which is counterclockwise around the floor. At the end of the tanda, a set of 3 or 4 songs, the man escorts his partner back to her seat. And now the scores at 2:54 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. English Premier League. Yesterday, Norwich City 0, Brighton Hove Albion 1, Leicester City 3, Crystal Palace 0, Manchester United 5, Bournemouth 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0, Arsenal 2, Chelsea 3, Watford 0. Today, Burnley 1, Sheffield United 1. Currently in the 81st minute, it is Newcastle United 2, West Ham United 2. Later today, it's Liverpool against Aston Villa, and then Southampton against Manchester City, and tomorrow it's Tottenham Hotspur against Everton. Italian Serie A. Yesterday, Juventus 4, Torino 1, Sassuolo 4, Lecce 2, Lazio 0, AC Milan 3. Starting up in about 15 minutes, it's Inter Milan against Bologna, and later today, Brescia take on Hellas Verona, Cagliari versus Atlanta, Parma takes on Fiorentina, Sampdoria against Spal, Udinese against Genoa, and at the end of the day, it's Napoli against Roma. The NWS Challenge Cup yesterday, results, Utah Royals 1, Sky Blue 0, Houston Dash 2, OL Reign 0. Today we have North Carolina Courage against Chicago Red Stars and Portland Thorns against Washington Spirit. And that concludes the score report, brought to you by Tango in St. Louis.
Thank you, Russell Bly. Edmundo,
Yes.
why don't you play us a little tune here? You got anything to... Oh, special shout out to Jim Hershey, although I may have missed him here, and Greg Kohler. Coach Kohler, one of the most successful coaches in the world.
Anything else you want me to say?
Well, I thought maybe you were going to say something witty.
Let the music speak for
Well,
itself.
I actually...
We have George?
Not yet.
We're going to get George. You talk for a minute. I got to go get some more coffee before George comes.
Play the guitar. Call George.
Yeah.
They just said,
And I'll be back in a minute.
would you if you have anything
Rub your
water,
tummy and
I would
pat
like
your
to
head.
have some.
Water?
Even
Yeah,
a
I'll get
glass
some
is
water.
Thank you, bartender.
Thank you. So I've last evening, Friday evening, we for $6.99 signed up for a month of Disney Plus,
Like half of the rest of the
like
country.
half of the rest of the country. So we could watch Alexander Hamilton on. Is it Jump?
Yep. Hey, George.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
It's Ted, Edmundo, Russell, Josh,
Tom
and
will be
Tom
back.
is making a pit stop.
Good Lord, you got there.
Got everybody, George. And that-
Are you guys together or are you all virtual?
We are all together, socially distanced, of
Socially
course.
distanced.
Round
Don't
table.
breathe on each other. You got masks?
No, we're 6 feet apart around the table. We're the knights of the round
Not
table.
only that, George, we're outside.
And there's a fan blowing away from us, over us to carry it away.
There you go. I'm putting on my headset now. Hang on one second.
All right.
We're live, George.
There you go.
We are live via Facebook.
Okay. Anytime you want. Ready to roll.
Let's do it.
George, how are
Yes,
you?
sir.
How are you, sir?
I am excellent. I am excellent. I've been, my wife and I have been hermitess for 4 months now, and a few little excursions, but basically, and you guys must be well because you're there.
Oh, we're here. So what have you been doing besides your blog to occupy your time?
You know, things go. First of all, you gotta eat. You gotta shop and arrange for people to shop or whatever. We got a big old house, and we've also been doing. My wife's working on a genealogy, so she's working at home on that, putting together reams and reams of pages on a long family going back a long time. And I have been writing, reading, and we connect to other people. I mean, we're busy as can be. We've been watching knows about. Once a week is presenting, it's NT Live. They present a free show on YouTube that you can pick up, and it's wonderful. We've seen some great stuff. We saw One Man, Two Governors again, and just other things. A terrific Midsummer Night's Dream just the other day. So we're quite happy with being busy. You know, our heads are busy all the time.
So have you reconnected with anyone? Have you taken this opportunity to reach out to someone, or has someone reached out to you that you hadn't heard from in a while?
It's a really good question. Yes, absolutely. Many people, because they have less to do. I mean, I keep up with. I have like 3 separate groups of good friends. My high school friends, my college jock friends, and a bunch of strange Seinfeldian baseball writer crazies who meet once a month. Used to meet once a month at a Chinese restaurant in Manhattan. So now we do the Zoom thing. One guy arranged it. So I have these 3 separate groups, and I've heard from people who have more to do. They're more home, more time, and we're all getting older too. And I find myself in touch with like our class valedictorian, who's a brilliant scientist out there. I just heard from him the other day, and a couple of my best, one of my best friends who got me a date for the senior prom in high school. I'm in touch with her. She's out visiting with. There's just a lot going on because of the social media. It heightens the impact of it. You can catch up with your friends.
Hey, George, it's Tom. What do you know about social media? That's a word.
What do I know?
That's a word you
know.
know.
And I thought I was anti-social media, except that I really do like having a blog, for one thing. I've got, a loyal 8 or 12 people that write in all the time, so it really is kind of a little club, but nevertheless, it's back and forth, and sometimes people pop in. And then I don't have a Facebook account except to post things. I don't read anybody else's Facebook. I have no access to it because I just didn't want to. So what do I know about it? I knew I didn't want to have to read about all my relatives and their kids and their grandkids and what they had for breakfast or worse. And so I avoid that. So if something's on Facebook, I don't know it. I don't see it.
George, that's not the worst part of Facebook. The worst part of Facebook is all the political junk that you see from crazy people.
Hey, George.
Well, yes, I agree with you there too. I've got my own craziness and I do keep up on it, but I just didn't want to get into that mainstream. Twitter I use only to post things. I just other people post things and they're wonderful, but I just can't follow it.
George, it's Edmundo. I looked at your Facebook. Speaking of Facebook, I looked at your post about the 4 colleges and how much you in your comments about that. For the benefit of others who haven't had a chance to see that, you want to give us a quick overview on that?
Well, sure. I pay attention to college sports anyway, and I'm very concerned about all these. We can talk about that too, about all these athletes going back to work and pro. But in college, I noticed the trend. Schools that I really admired, that I had some connection to, like Morehouse in Atlanta. Just great people that have gone there. There's a guy on our classical radio station in New York, and he's terrific. Terrence McKnight. He's so knowledgeable. So I'm aware of Morehouse. I'm aware of Bowdoin because we go up to Maine and we love their art. It's just a lovely place and a lovely little corner of the world. The kids are so smart. And then Sarah Lawrence, where our 2 daughters went, is just a wonderful school. And Swarthmore, where our granddaughter is going, and she's playing soccer there. All 4 of those schools gave up fall sports this year at the same time, in the same week. And to me, that was a sign that a great school, knows its priorities. And even though they're not allowing older, upper-class people to come back to school in some cases, or other things, you can't be on campus, you can't stay in your dorm for the semester. But nevertheless, they're doing things that how important are sports? Well, they're not that important that we want you to try and keep playing it and make all kinds of adjustments to it. So, but it's really hard to watch a kid that has been a terrific little soccer player at 5 and 6. When she was playing with the little kiddies in a park in Pennsylvania, she had an amazing sense of space. She always put the ball into open space. She always knew where things were, and she's always been a terrific. Even in high school, she was the captain of her high school team, and all of that. Now she gets to college, and she's not a star, not a regular, but she loves her team. She loves her teammates. And suddenly that junior year where maybe she would play some more, that junior year is gone, and it's gone forever because these kids aren't going to redshirt themselves. Girls playing Division III soccer are not going to redshirt to play another year in school. They're going on to med school and law school and Lord knows what. But it's still hard for her to know that she's losing one of her last seasons of her life.
Well, George, let me ask you this then. Big time Division I collegiate sports, particularly the big sports, football and basketball, are essentially the minor leagues for the pro system, and the young men that mainly men that participate, and women, but men that participate in that are there or in college for that development and exposure.
Right.
So what are your thoughts now about that situation for them?
Well, looking and pardon me if this sounds political, but looking at the knuckleheads in a huge swath of the country who are partying with no masks on at beaches and bars and outside, breathing on each other at a point where we're discovering that it's even more dangerous than you thought to be breathing on each other, indoor and outdoor. If that's what's going to happen, if people are going to be allowed in to watch, and ultimately people are going to be around, it's dangerous for everybody. It's spreading it. And as far as the athletes go, what could be, I can think of very few intimate things that are more up close and personal than tackling somebody and grinding their face into the mud, jumping on them, like in football scrimmages and all that. It's just dangerous. And I think for schools to go on with it, basically they're doing it to please the NFL, to please the networks, to please the boosters, to please the yahoos that are crowding together at all these rallies and events. It's catering to the worst and most stupid part of us is to go on with it. Call it off. And I would say, since I'm a baseball, I don't much care about football, college or pro, but since I'm a baseball buff and a soccer buff, I sort of feel the same way about that. Even if you play with no fans in the stands, which is a whole other subject, but I still, nevertheless, I'm coming down on the fact that it's dangerous. I mean, if they're telling old people like me, don't go food shopping, don't have people in your house, don't have your grand. I haven't hugged a relative in 4 months, my kids and my grandkids. So if they're telling people, and I'm paying attention to it, doing it, it's very hard to do. What do you tell college football players how dangerous it is to be part of a killing machine, which I think big college sports will be this fall?
Hey, George, it's Josh. Speaking of no fans in the stands, I wanted to talk to you about your blog post that you wrote about getting a text from someone to turn on the Chelsea-Manchester City match, and kind of talking about the theme of no fans. I found myself, again, agreeing with you that while it's an eerie experience, and we'll have to see when other sports return what it looks like, the action and all that's been going on with soccer, the whole no crowds deal has been lost on me, and I've just been immersed in the talent and the action, and it's been as good, honestly, as it has been with fans. I wanted to get your thoughts on this whole new wave, this new era of no fans, but we still having sports.
I totally agree with you. I was the first 2 weeks. It was the Bundesliga, so I happened to watch Dortmund with a very good team, and they were playing their Schalke up the road, and it's it's a big rivalry in that industrial region, and those players knew that they had supporters on both sides, and Dortmund was way ahead, and they have this great kid, this Norwegian kid, but the skill level, even with not much training, even their stamina wasn't great, they still. And so now it's passed on. Now I've been watching the Premiership, not a whole lot, but my family in Pennsylvania watches because Pulisic is a local hero. So every time he's playing, my phone starts to ping, and I'm watching this wonderful team that Chelsea has now developed, has put together in the course of a season. It's getting better all the time. And I see the skill level as these guys learn to play with each other from game to game. And the opposing team has figured out that Pulisic trying to frustrate him and hurt him. And now he's putting his own teammates, he's putting Willian on the penalty spot because of his ability just to break loose and surprise teams. So it's still the same skill and the maturation of some players, and then you watch some older, like David Luiz fell apart in a game a couple of weeks ago for Arsenal, just disgraceful. That a pro would come in so unprepared to have his head in the game. And as I emailed I have an Arsenal couple friends of mine who live in Brooklyn. I emailed them. I said, looks like the same old David Luiz to me. But the fact is, it's the Premiership. It engages your mind, your malice toward a dope who has a bad game, and it really is the same skill. Players are kicking each other in the ankle, dragging their cleats across somebody's shins, and I didn't mean to do that. It's the same dirty stuff. Elbow to Pulisic here and there when he's trying to break through.
So the amazing thing
so
about
you
mentioned David Luiz. The amazing thing about that is that Arsenal put him in the next two games and he's actually played well. It's kind of astonishing.
Well,
He's actually
he
been
went
playing
into that match as a substitute, so you could give him that he just wasn't prepared.
Maybe, but you're right. It was
I didn't realize that, so I'm not as up to date on this.
No one was shocked when he did what he did because he's done these things over time, and you thought, okay, that's it, he's done with Arsenal, but he's played the last two games.
Well, thanks for telling me that. No, I've always liked him. I mean, particularly on set pieces, the way he gets up. He's an extra forward, and because of his height. So, I know him for a long time, playing in the World Cup and all that. But anyway, thanks for letting me know.
So, George, have you been watching any other sport on television? What's caught your eye?
No, really not. I mean, I'm waiting for baseball to come back. I have really mixed feelings about that. I mean, I think that blank on the guy's name from the Washington Zimmerman. I think that he is going to turn out to be he and Desmond are going to turn out to be the beacons for a lot of players to empower them to say, I've made a little bit of money. I've made $11 million in 5 years in the major leagues, or whatever the amazing figure is, and I just don't need this. Who was it the other day? Mike Trout is saying, okay, so all these guys or some of the smarter ones are figuring out that it's dangerous to be playing and traveling and having people around breathing on them in clubhouses and all that. Nevertheless, when the Mets play opening game, and I'm not sure when that is in a couple of weeks, I guarantee you that I will be in front of the TV watching my Mets inning by inning as long as it goes. And if they manage to squeeze a 60-game season out of it, I want to see Jake DeGrom, go 6-2 and with 4 or 5 innings a game or whatever, and win another Cy Young Award. I'm all in as long as they're playing.
Hey, George, speaking of baseball,
Yeah.
during this pandemic, obviously people have been looking for things to watch, and I found myself immersed in all of these mini documentaries, docuseries about different sports, one of which was the ESPN 30 for 30 Long Gone Summer about the 1998 home run race. I believe you wrote a book on the same, McGwire and Sosa going at it in 1998. I didn't know if you'd seen that or, again, had given your thoughts on, coming back to that time in baseball and how much it did for the sport.
I'm sorry, you said, tell me which book you're referring to.
It was the 30 for 30 Long Gone Summer, or I don't know if you'd written about McGwire and Sosa before or during 1998. I'm not sure, but I didn't know if you'd, at least from baseball not being on currently, but still getting that great story about the 1998 home run race. Again, that was really cool to see, and I didn't know if you had any thoughts or if you'd seen it.
I'm sorry, I wasn't hearing you. Yes, I did a kid's book or kind of a little book about McGwire Sosa. I'm a little bit embarrassed about it because I really glossed over what we pretty much had an idea was happening, but couldn't prove that so many players were. I think I hero worshipped a little bit too much in that book. Nevertheless, yes, I was there. I was there in St. Louis when McGwire hit the home run and Sosa came out and congratulated him, and it was fun. And those two guys, I mean, McGwire, I later came to think of as a jerk, and Sosa also, but they lived up to it. They came through and behaved themselves and were terrific. But I haven't watched any documentaries. I just tend not to. I didn't see any of the Jordan stuff. People call me and say, "Hey, it's the Mets sixth game, and it's early in the game, and Sid Fernandez has just come in." I lived through it. I was there. It seems like yesterday, but it's all national theater. I saw Hamilton the other night.
Oh.
And the first time I've never seen it before. I didn't know much about it, and I managed to somehow get through the barricade of YouTube and signing on of Disney Plus, and it's wonderful. So now I'm totally into Lin-Manuel Miranda. My head's gone in a different direction. I'm really not. I just don't care that much about the documentaries. Jordan, I don't care about anyway.
Well, George, we're going to come back to Hamilton, but Ted's got a question first.
George, to follow up on what Josh said, I haven't watched a lot of those things, but one of the things I've enjoyed here locally is that KMOX has been playing some classic broadcasts of Cardinal games.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed listening to Game 7 of the Red Sox-Cardinals World Series a couple weekends ago, and just the theater of the mind. You know,
You're talking about 1946?
No, 1967 World Series.
1967, okay.
Right, and I was 2 years old, but I've read a lot about it, and it's classic. It's classic Cardinal, Gibson, those classic 60s teams. Maris was on that team, etc. But it was the actual original broadcast, and it was it was Harry Carey. Nope. On this particular broadcast, it was Carey. It was the national broadcast, and I can't remember the other broadcaster. Anyway, but that's something I've enjoyed. I wanted to ask you about something that we're all familiar with related to this pandemic that we're in the middle of. You wrote a terrific article or a blog about Dr. Anthony Fauci and him being America's point guard.
That was
okay?
brilliant.
And
that was brilliant.
And that we're months removed from that now, but it still rings with me. It still resonates with me, and the fact that his messages are being politicized is such a shame. The guy's brilliant. In many ways, I believe he was used, and then when the way he was speaking wasn't useful anymore for the people that were using him, he was kind of brushed to the side. So share a little bit your sentiments about how you were feeling at that moment. And I really appreciated his message early on in this. It got me thinking. It got me seeking more information, and I felt more informed than I might have otherwise been.
Oh, I appreciate you saying that. I didn't know anything about Fauci until this pandemic. I mean, I just didn't know. And he popped up, and then my brother-in-law, Richie, they've gone to the same high school, Regis High School in New York, which is a free school for bright boys. In fact, the guy from SNL, oh, God, I'm blanking on his name. The funny guy who does the Weekend Update, he had gone there too. You know, that kind of kid, really bright kid. And there's Fauci, and he materializes in front of our eyes, a knowledgeable guy. He sounds like Louis Carnesecca. They both have this New York Italian accent, and I can say that because I want to be Italian. And he comes on, and I'm saying, oh my goodness, this guy knows stuff, and he's personable, and he's totally secure in who he is. And the fool, the clown, is standing there with that orange head, glowering at him, or looking the other way, or doing all the things you do when you're a disruptive student in school. And Fauci just went ahead and did it. And the amazing thing to me is that Trump hasn't been able to fire him yet. That I'm sure he's tried to. And people said you can fire anybody else. You can fire Pence. You can fire Melania. But you can't fire Fauci. And so here the guy survives because I'm sure even some people in Trump's circle know that Fauci's right and is keeping some lid on the stupidities that would be going on otherwise.
Hey, George.
Yeah.
I've been holding up the picture of your book. Do you remember writing this book, 8 World Cups, My Journey Through the Beauty and Dark Side of Soccer?
I do remember. It wasn't that long ago. It was 2010, 2011, came out in 2014, and I'm very proud of it.
It's a great book.
Glad I got it done.
It is a great book. Well, I'm going to tell you.
My agent, who hates soccer, her eyes go blotto when you mention soccer. I told her the idea, and she had it sold in a day.
Wow.
bless him.
That's a good agent.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you, this is a great book. Another great book is a book that other book I tried to bring out here to put on camera, but even though I had about 10 copies, I have no copies anymore of Stan Musial because I lend them to people. I lend it to people and I never get it back. So I can't
you
hold
gotta get a system there. These little bookmarks, and you stick one in the book, and then you have a copy of receipt, and you keep that receipt at home. And after about 3 months, you call people up and say, "Hey, I meant to return it to you." I don't have any copies. I was up in the attic the other day looking for. I wanted to send one to a friend of mine overseas. Not that I really want to go into a post office,
Right.
but I was looking for it, and I realized I was totally out.
Wow.
So
And you know what? It's such a
the
great...
music book has done so well that they never remaindered it, even the hardcover or the paperback. And sometimes you get a writer gets a whole box of sent to his house, and you can keep them around because nobody wants them. But in this case, I look at these sales, and Tom knows about sales because he's my master salesman. But I look at the sales graph month by month, and it jumps at Father's Day. That's a great book for a great time
sure
for
is.
buying sports books for fathers and husbands. And then it jumps again. I mean, goes from 11 to 109 in a week, and then it goes down again and flattens out.
Flatten the curve. Well,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a problem when you write a good book. Okay, let's talk about Hamilton. I hadn't planned on talking about Hamilton, but let's talk about it. I got to see the original production. Was what you saw the original cast?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I believe it was. They did it about three years ago.
Oh.
I think they brought back one or two. I can't remember how that worked, but it was the original cast, and they knew that it was going to be a movie. So they had cameras in different places. They have cameras from up high, cameras from angles. They tell you, which is the good and the bad of theater being presented in film, because the camera knows.
Right.
Somebody's on the headset. They have this camera A is going to be going there. Camera B, and as they pointed out, I wasn't aware of it. But when the woman, I'm not giving anything away here. It's been out for a couple of 100 years. The woman that Hamilton had an affair with down the block from him in Lower Manhattan.
Right.
It all hits the fan, and she's kind of a sad woman, and she's brought him down to some level, and she wears a red dress, the symbol of redness, and when she appears in the sideline, he's getting his comeuppance. Somebody's blackmailing him, and blah, 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 and the politics, Jefferson knows about it, and they're going to rat on him. And this woman appears in the sideline just as the ghost that won't go away. And it makes for great viewing. And if you're watching in the theater, your eye might be somewhere else. You might miss the fact that for a minute she's standing there haunting him by her spectral presence.
Yeah.
So so it's good and bad, but they are so talented, and to see them up close. I mean, somebody was pointing out today, I think in the recent New York, that's it. The current New Yorker, or the New Yorker website, if you can access it, you can get some free, has a review by somebody, and I forget by whom, about the film version. And this very perceptive writer points out that when they zero in on George III, who's
Right.
and a spitting image. I say a spitting image because the writer says you can actually see that every time he's accentuating one of his consonants, you can see, as performers do, the saliva go out between his teeth and his lips and all that. Dangerous if you're in the front row of these days, but there's no front row. Anyway, this guy was so good, and there's so many other performances that are wonderful. The woman who plays his Hamilton's sister-in-law, she kind of reminded me of Michelle Obama. Tall and strong and smart, and a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
They're just terrific people.
I got to tell you something about the King. I saw. I was so lucky to see the original cast on Broadway, and I saw you that weekend. I met Sean Clancy that weekend. or that weekday.
That's right. Oh, that's right. You were in town for the big event.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't listening. I only wanted to talk St. Louis and stuff with you, and I really wasn't paying attention.
Well, you got to pay attention to this
You were early on, man.
Yeah. Well, but the thing about the King, I've seen it twice. I saw it in New York and I saw it in London.
Right.
And in New York, the King was one of the treats in a cast of brilliance. He was one of the stars in a limited role. And if you really paid attention, he got gradually crazier over the performance of the play. He got okay. In England, not so much. The King was not. They do not. I mean, he wasn't nearly as flamboyant. He didn't spit, as I recall. I was really disappointed with the King in London, but I guess there's no surprise to that.
Well, that's interesting because they have. I mean, the British theater has accentuated the craziness of King George, and in fact, it recently made a comeback and showed up on this National Theater series. They lifted it up and played it again. So either it was the fault of the performer, but usually it's not. Usually it's the way the thing is presented. On the other hand, they do everything so well in the UK that I'm a little surprised that they don't just try. I mean, it was Leslie Groff, is that his name?
I don't recall.
He is so good.
Oh.
He reminded me of something I saw again this spring that I'd seen a couple of years before, which was Jesus Christ Superstar, when Alice Cooper comes out to play Herod.
Oh, gee.
You know, that same mincing, menacing, every syllable, you know, not only it takes form, but takes flight, you know, the way Alice Cooper was in that. Well, this guy hit that level.
Two stories on Alice Cooper. One, he was at Hamilton the night I saw Hamilton, sitting in about the 10th row, and I actually got the balls to say something to him, and he said, "Oh man, it's simply fantastic," was his comment.
Was that before or after they did the live performance of Jesus Christ Superstar?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm talking about Hamilton. When I saw Hamilton,
No,
Alice.
I understand. But if he was in the 10th row or whatever it was at Hamilton, was it before or after Alice Cooper had done Jesus Christ Superstar?
It would have been before. That was the John Legend live on NBC, right?
Right, and it's only it's only like 3 years old.
Yeah.
It was after.
They did it in some armory in Brooklyn. I mean, it's wonderful. Legend is the least of it. He's wasted in that.
Yeah.
But other people, Morelli, who's lovely, and the guy from Hamilton, who wasn't in this performance of it, I forget his name, who played, who played the villain.
Judas.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the guy's name. I'm blank. Anyway, the point being that if Alice Cooper saw Leslie Groff or playing in that, he really might have decided to amp up his act. Not that he needs that.
Yeah. Well, like he needed, Alice Cooper needs that to amp it up. George, we got to go.
All right.
Thank you so much for talking
Hey, can
to us.
I say this?
Yes.
Thank you guys for being so prepared for looking at my website, for knowing what I've been up to, and so on. I was prepared to just babble, and you let me babble, but you kept me within the guidelines. So
George,
terrific.
We miss you, George.
We miss you, man. It's you're our second phone call. Last week was Tom Timmerman. This week it's you. So
Tom Timmerman's a great guy. Anyway, my regards to everybody. And when this is all over, we'll be eating some pho at Quee's Place or who knows what.
Iced coffee.
And we'll go on from there.
all right, George Vecsey. Thanks, brother.
Stay
Take
safe,
care.
George.
Bye,
Thank
George.
You well.
Take care, guys.
So just a score update, game that ended while we were talking to George. Newcastle United 2, West Ham United 2. Coming up very shortly.
So they got a point.
You got a point.
That 2-3 would have been great, but
Helps them out a little bit.
But again, with the win they had midweek, compared to the other teams, what they're doing, a point
Right.
is,
to get 4 points out of those 2 games is
correct. So
is-
any points now, I feel as though are good at this point
Okay.
because of the way they had separated themselves. They got a win. Of course, they'd love to have more, but right now they're doing better than some
You
of
could
these
say
other
right
teams.
now that third drop spot is between Aston Villa and Watford, really. At this
Josh,
point.
I was thinking about this. Remember at the beginning of the year, you were really bold, and you said it's clear that 3 teams are in the drop. And my recollection is you got 2 of the 3 right. For sure, you had Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, Norwich have been down there for a while
They've
now.
not climbed up.
And then Aston Villa have been in different spots, but for the most part, they've been in the relegation battle. Bournemouth have been hovering, and now they've just, they've hit rock bottom essentially.
They
honestly.
didn't come back. Boy, you had to come back on fire. You had to come back in this thing on the get-go. Oh, but wait, it's time for the top 10.
Correct. But yeah, I mean, we can get to that here in a second. So I wanted to go away from the Premier League and actually talk about some local news that broke. So I want to give context before I get my top 10. This is concerning St. Louis FC. So as we know, the USL is coming back. They're going to be the first professional league in our country to have fans.
Huh.
So St. Louis FC announced this along with the schedule coming out that they will be hosting fans. They'll be open at 50% capacity.
I think that makes sense. I mean, I'm kind of disagreeing with George here,
Right.
but
I don't.
maybe not 50%.
I don't know. I'm not gonna poo-poo it if you think it's correct, and I'm not gonna do it if you think, well, this is too dangerous. But it's interesting that they're trying, and again, they're not being brazen with it. It's 50%. They're gonna have mandatory face masks. They're gonna have social distancing.
Face masks on the field?
No,
No,
for
in the
fans,
stands.
for in attendance, and fans are not gonna be sitting next to each other.
Will you cover it?
I'm gonna talk and see what the procedures are for that, and see if I can.
The bottom line is you've got to wait and see what the conditions on the ground are when the games actually start.
Right. Well, again, you have to do this to see if it works. Obviously.
Oh, when you say conditions on the ground, you're talking like a war thing.
Yeah,
Conditions
exactly.
on the
I
ground.
mean-
what is our scenario? Where
Yeah.
are we? What's our caseload at?
Yeah.
But anyway, so
General
also
Blige.
when it comes to tickets, the general public will have a chance, I think, at tickets, but season ticket holders and others will have first priority. So, but be on the lookout for more announcements from the club.
So 50%, they're going to let people come,
Mhm.
50% attendance. So St. Louis FC will have, they had a couple games or?
They had one game
One
before
game.
the shutdown. They had one game. It'll count towards their schedule. So while teams are playing a 16-game schedule, St. Louis has a 15-game schedule.
Okay.
So the games already count. So schedule was dropped this week. Remember, they're in a group. It's like a World Cup format with 3 other teams. Top 2 advance to
So
the playoffs.
a group stage?
A group stage. You're going to play those teams 4 times each.
Wow.
2 away, 2 home, except for one case, which I'll get to in a second. And then there were 3 out-of-group games, but you're going to play within a reasonable geographical spot. And I've got those matches in my top 10 here, too. So I wanted to do the top 10 matches that I'm most intrigued by on the schedule. There's going to be repeats, obviously, because they're going to be playing a lot of the same opponents. So I'm going to start here. August 8th, at home versus FC Tulsa. That's the only Western Conference matchup on their schedule. And the last matchup between those 2 teams was in 2018 in October. St. Louis FC won that 1-0. They actually swept Tulsa that year. They were in the Western Conference, and they swept them in all 3 matches that they played them. So, good history against that club, and it's a different matchup on the schedule than the other ones. Number 9, August 1st, away versus Memphis 901 FC. On the original schedule, St. Louis FC was supposed to play Memphis 3 times. That will only happen once. They played them in the preseason and beat them, but obviously the schedule has been changed. So this is going to be the only matchup between them. Kind of a new rivalry since Memphis joined the league a couple years ago. So should be interesting. Again, another out-of-group matchup that could be important, given the context and how things work out in group play. Number 8, August 5th, home against Sporting Kansas City 2. So this is what I'm talking about. Sporting Kansas City 2 are not hosting any matches. For some reason, due to the pandemic, their facilities or whatever, they're not going to have any home matches. So all 4 matches will be against Sporting KC. This will be the first of those 4. It's the longest homestand on the schedule. 3 straight home matches for St. Louis FC. That's an important time to pick up points. And you start with, I believe, the weakest team in their group. Sporting Kansas City's in their group. They got to take advantage of that. Number 7, September 26th, at home versus Louisville City FC. That's our main rival. The Kings Cup, which is between the supporters groups, between these 2 clubs. That's going to be the last meeting against them, and it's going to be the second last home game. So, again, important time to try to pick up points and also get into the playoff picture there. Moving on to number 6, October 3rd, home against Indy 11. That's the final matchup on the schedule. So, again, if St. Louis FC are trying to get into the playoffs, they got to play the toughest teams at the end, and that'll be the final home match. Both teams, in my opinion, will be fighting for a playoff spot there. So we'll be interested to see how we end up.
So question, Josh. So immediately for the fans, just whether or not they're going to go to the game, just to keep up with St. Louis FC, they're gonna have 4 games for sure. Is that or
That's against Sporting Kansas City. They'll have 4 home games for sure. 2 against Indy, 2 against Louisville, and then 1 against Tulsa. Those
so
are
a
the home
total of
matches.
how many games?
9 home games.
9 total home games.
Yes.
Oh wow.
9 homes, 6. They
So
got
there'll
lucky.
be an opportunity for people to get to see them.
Correct. If you miss out on the initial rush, I think in the back end there'll be opportunities, and they've spread this out. Like I said, I've got a match in October in here already. It's going to be a very spread out 15 games, so people will have chances.
Have you reached out to Tyler by any chance?
Yeah, I have.
All right,
I'm working on it. Number 5, July 18th, away versus Louisville City FC. This will be the first matchup of the Kings Cup rivalry. First visit to the new stadium. Louisville, unfortunately, had this brand new, beautiful stadium, especially for a USL side, that they haven't gotten to play in yet. So that'll be St. Louis FC's first visit to their new digs. Louisville City.
Yeah, well, they're getting an NWSL club
exactly.
next year. And that'll be one of the, other than Portland, that'll be one of the nicest venues in the league.
It's beautiful. I got to give them that.
NWSL, yeah.
I always get that, NWA.
But I visited Louisville for a North Carolina match about 3 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
On campus, they have a nice 6,000 seat
Yes.
stadium, similar to
University
Soccer
of Louisville's
Park. And the fact that now they're building another venue, Louisville's a hotbed.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is. They're doing great stuff.
That's why we hate him so much.
Exactly. Number 4, July 26th at home versus Indy 11. That'll be the first home match.
Say that again.
July 26th at home versus Indy 11. It's the first home match since March 7th.
We got soccer coming up the wazoo.
I know, but fans have been, they want to be back, and I'll be interested to see if I get the chance to cover what it looks like in person.
You'll get the chance to cover.
With all these precautions that'll be taking place. So that'll be exciting to see. Moving
Put
on.
Tom Timmerman on it.
Exactly. Number 3, August 22nd, away to Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC. This is going to be the farthest trip for St. Louis, all the way out to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was the top seed in the regular season last year in the Eastern Conference, and then an added bonus, 2 of the players that helped make them successful, goalkeeper Kyle Morton and central defender Toby Adewale, now both on St. Louis FC. So they go up against their former club. Nice
Ding,
little
ding, ding,
mini
ding.
story.
Ding, ding, ding.
22nd minute, it's Inter Milan 1, Bologna 0.
Oh, thank God.
You know who scored?
I'm worried. No.
Alexis Sanchez.
Lukaku.
Oh, that makes sense.
Really?
He's been having a decent season.
Yep.
Number 2, July 11th, away versus Indy 11. That's this Saturday. That's the first match on the schedule.
Wow.
We're kicking right off. We're under a week away now. Indy 11's a tough team. They're going to have to go to, they play in the Colts Stadium. That's also an interesting thing, too.
In the Colts Stadium?
And
Like
it-
the NFL?
Yeah. That's their home place. But an indoor thing during this time. They're doing the whole crowds thing, too. I'll be interested to see what that looks like. But no, first match, again, 6 days away.
What you thought when you watch these games? I mean, I've all these games. I've been thinking, why couldn't they design a system to where they have, all the stadia are built into sections, so you have 10 people. Auction off a section,
Right.
and you get to bring 10 people, and you give $1 million or whatever you're going to give to some charity.
Well, I'll say, if this works, everyone will figure out a system, I
Yeah.
think, for sure. I guess people have just been afraid to step up, and we'll see what the USL can do.
I don't think George will be going.
My number 1 match on the schedule that I'm looking forward to, most intrigued. Obviously, it'll depend on how the teams do, and at these different points in the schedule, some games may mean more. But I think August 29th, at home versus Louisville City FC, it'll be the first time hosting the rivals in 2020 at home. This is a game that when fans get the schedule every year, that's the first thing they circle. Home match against your rivals. This will be the first one of the year since they were deprived of that on the original schedule. I mean, there's been some great matches between these two sides. Last year, it was a 0-0 draw and then a 1-0 road victory by Louisville at St. Louis FC. So the margins were very thin. I think these two teams will fight for a spot in the playoffs, and it's just going to be good fun and something the fans have been sorely missing. And I'll be excited, hope to see it. And again, happy that they're back and interested to see what everything's going to look like, and we'll know starting this Saturday.
Awesome. Okay, give us a little strum, will you?
Yeah, happy to, Tom. Request line's open. Donations.
Request
to your food.
don't try to lay no boogie woogie on the King of Rock. was it.
I can play more.
You're never going to see me play Lola. I don't do that. All right. I think we ought to talk. We haven't really talked very much about the EPL today. Somebody tell me if this has got both those guys in it.
I think you got to go a little more this way.
You got the better looking guy
You got to
now.
split it. You got to split it further.
You
That's
should-
better.
You should put some markings
Mark on
on
the
the table.
Yeah.
next
I
to the
know.
Lazy Susan.
Yeah.
That say like Josh Russell, Tom, Edmundo, Ted.
Excuse me. I got to take some notes here.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So we're gonna. I just bring my selfie stick. This is get some order around here. So, all right. Russell? What have we not talked about relative to English Premier League?
I think we could talk a little bit more about Pulisic
All right.
and the way that he's come back so strongly. I know Josh will have a lot to say about this.
So here's the
But
stat.
even yesterday, he won the free kick that for the penalty that.
Correct. In every match since they've been back, Chelsea, Pulisic has either scored or he's drawn a penalty. Every match. Again, like
That's good stuff.
right, like I said, next to Fernandes, he's been
The
one of the best players in the league since the restart. And again, it's night and day compared to watching him now versus before this crisis, where the talent was always there, but the confidence wasn't, and the playing time wasn't, and the amount of times that he would go, and his best skill is taking on defenders, dribbling, distributing, drawing people in, all of this stuff. He just didn't have many opportunities to do it, and when he did, sometimes he'd shy away from it. Now, like you said, he is so vibrant and so in your face about it, the way that he's able to beat defenders, drop penalties, score, all these different things, that he's demanding extra attention, which is what the best players
do. No, the first game back, he came on as a substitute, and he scored.
Yeah.
And he's been starting ever since.
Correct.
And you think, oh, they've got to give him a rest at some point here, but they keep on putting him on the field at the beginning
Well,
of the game. So
but
this
next
is how well
year-
he's playing.
But again, what we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean,
Who's coming in?
Ziyech and Werner.
I have to be honest. I mean, I'm wondering if a little bit if he's not in the shop window. Actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope
That's
not.
why he's playing so much.
I'm hoping that this is. First of all, I'm hoping he's just playing this much because he's our best offensive player right now.
Well, he is.
We need the wins. But I think that this is an audition for him to say, all right, that's two of the three up top. There's still one spot. We've seen that the negotiations with Willian right now, they're unwilling to go for multiple years. I suspect that
Willian.
even though he's playing very good, that he'll want to start, and Chelsea are not going to give him that opportunity, so he will move on.
I think there's been a little bit of talk about him going to Liverpool.
Well,
That'd be
so
unfortunate.
Josh, who's the guy that Pulisic is replacing on Chelsea? Like, if when he wasn't starting, who took his place?
Well, I mean, they've tried several different guys up there. They pushed Mason Mount forward there, but I think his role is better in that middle three behind the attacking three.
So how would you describe what Pulisic is? What? He's not a winger.
Yeah, he's a
Is
winger.
he?
He's a
Is
winger.
he?
Yeah, his best
Yeah.
position's the winger.
So he starts the game
On the left wing.
on the left wing at midfield.
No, in front.
In the
at
front.
At the front
Okay.
three. It's a
All right.
4-3-3
It's a
system.
To me, winger always.
But
Was
I
a
mean, winger
defender.
can mean if you
Right.
even if you are a winger,
You
you
better
can
be
play.
careful. I'll just reach over there and
Yeah.
get you this thing.
You can play back, mid, or front. I mean, to be a winger.
Oh.
Depends on the system.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I thought you had to be a wing back.
I mean, if you're only playing one or two up front, then maybe you're a wing back, as you say.
Right.
So you could,
Right.
and think about it,
Or
politically,
left
you could be a right winger while you're a left winger on the field, or vice
You could be
versa.
fascist or you could be Antifa. Who knows?
But the main
Wow.
point being that
Exciting.
he has firmly established his place, and I'm taking the positive route. I see this as an audition to say, you don't need to buy any
At
more
Chelsea.
offensive players.
When you speak of Pulisic,
Mhm.
are you capable of speaking about him? I almost noticed this, Russell, an ability to speak about him not subjectively as a Chelsea fan, as opposed to most of, like for me, I don't like Chelsea,
Right.
but I like Pulisic and I want to see him play and I want to see him play well.
All right, agreed. I think that before, obviously, no, because the results weren't there. But now that the results are there, I can confidently say these things that not only is he deserving of his spot now, that Chelsea may need to back off a little bit, and because we've seen it in the West Ham match, they shouldn't be trying to get more offensive guys. The problem's the defense. In that West Ham match, every single one of the back four and the goalkeeper made a mistake in each one of the goals. And I could argue right now that an entire back four should
Ought to
be
go.
brought in.
Yeah.
Because
They're
right
not very
now,
good.
They're trying to get rid of both left backs. They want to bring in the guy Chilwell from Leicester City because they need a more defensive option there because both those guys tend to forget a lot that they play defense because they're offense. You've got multiple center backs who are incapable of staying in front of defenders, clearing balls. Can't even mark on a corner kick. I mean, it's been well documented over these past few weeks. Chelsea cannot mark corner kicks very well, and part of that has to do with physicality. They are just not capable of sticking with their men.
Russell, I don't know about you, but here I'm going to interrupt you. I think Josh is less focused on the U.S. aspect of this than he is about the pure partisan Chelsea-ness of it.
I can't blame him for that in some ways. I mean,
It's almost like I'm a fan or something.
Club before country,
Right.
Tommy.
He could, yeah.
Not America.
Right.
Oh.
Well, he's doing
Oh, you
fine.
don't-
I want to address the problems, and it's really a plague that is the entire Premier League. Because why?
Plague.
Because
No,
why?
this is where Liverpool was 3 years
COVID,
ago.
COVID
Right?
2020.
You're where Chelsea's where Liverpool was 3 years ago. You need some more central defense.
Right. Why did Liverpool win? Yes, they had a good offense, but they had great defense. Why did City lose this year so badly? Their
Because they
defense
had
is awful.
injuries.
Why are United? They're just now figuring it out. But why were they so behind in the first place? Defense. Why are Chelsea so behind? Because Newcastle had a better defensive record than Chelsea did.
What made Liverpool the champion is when they got Virgil van Dijk.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Teams need to now go out and get. They're not going to get Virgil van Dijk. They
Did
need
you
to
see
get their
Harry
version.
Maguire get nutmegged?
Exactly.
on that
That's the
goal?
whole point. Like again, you want to praise United. 5 goals is great, but the fact that they had to score 5 goals against a team that's in the relegation zone basically is a testament to why they're so behind and fighting for the Champions League spot in the first place. There's been a lack of defensive emphasis in the Premier League, and only one team was able really to address it or already had it in place, and that's why they won the league so much.
Right, and you see the difference from 3 years ago when Liverpool was scoring a ton of goals, but if you had an off day and didn't score a ton of goals, it didn't help you out because you were also giving up goals.
Right.
So last year, where you've got the defence in place, and now you're competitive. They didn't score as many goals, but they didn't need to.
Yeah.
And now, until this year, it all comes together.
And
Well-
before you swing the camera,
Oh.
get Josh and Russell back in the shot.
We're back in the shot. Okay.
Okay? So, just want to point out the Carly Lloyd love
Oh,
that's going on
Absolutely.
here today.
Even though she's not playing.
Right,
Right.
not playing, and even though she's blocked me on Twitter,
she blocked you on Twitter.
That's pretty.
she's quick to block people.
What did you say?
There was a time during the dark recesses of Sky Blue FC, her club team, where players were struggling to find a place to shower after their matches.
So you offered
You
them your house?
No.
Great minds.
No.
Ding, 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 ding.
Our beloved national team captain was tweeting out about suggestions for where she could find a vintage pool table. And I made a snarky comment, and
She blocked your
I was
ass.
gone. So, but I'm among friends. Let's put it that way.
Wow. that-
All of my favorite NWSL and women's soccer pundits, most of them have been blocked for similar
Wow.
faux pas on Twitter.
It's okay.
Well,
Okay.
She's got thin skin. Let's
All
put it
right.
that way.
Well,
Anyway, so I mean, she's not in the current competition. Taking a break from it. That's a decision she made, and some other players have done the same thing. That's fine.
That's fine. You know what?
But yeah, we got the number 10
Well,
shirt
I was
here.
going to say, we're going to ignore the promotion on the back, and we're just going to focus, yes, it's Carly
Right.
Lloyd.
I'm focused on the 3 stars from the timing of when you bought that shirt.
Exactly.
hey, let's we're getting near the end. Ed, give us a little music. We're gonna get out of. Let's wrap up the Premier League.
Well, again, I think, let me see this, for this week, just to give people a heads up. Like I said, at the bottom, for personal interest, West Ham taking on Burnley and Norwich. I'd like to think that it's possible that they could nearly guarantee safety this week if they pick up 2 wins, which I think they can.
I don't think
Yeah, we
they'll
got
pick.
double games coming.
2
up this week.
wins are tough.
Well, Norwich are just, they shouldn't even show up.
But
honestly.
you know what?
They're
I
not
mean, they
caring.
lost that game yesterday to whoever they lost, but they only lost 1-0.
I know, but if you saw the
Right.
scenes afterwards, they
And
really
they've got
focused on
Pookie.
it. They were, I know, I wish he was doing better. But they just look so despondent. So that's West Ham. Chelsea have road matches versus Palace and Sheffield. teams they should beat, but on the road, and one of them being a London derby. We just saw what happened in the last London derby. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah, but that was the other the reaction. As soon as you see the reaction, Chelsea beat Man City. Man City bounced right back.
Right.
Played brilliantly.
And Chelsea responded yesterday
by losing. Oh,
They
won.
won.
And then they won again. I mean, they
Right.
responded to the loss. So I mean, you don't know what's going to happen.
It's got to be a seasonal response on their part. Leicester are at Arsenal, which is a tough match.
Yeah.
A tough team that has historically gotten them, even during the title run. That was the only team to really beat them twice. And then you got Wolves at Sheffield, and this week, and you got United at Aston Villa, who need the points to stay above relegation.
It's the 19th minute, Liverpool 0 at Aston Villa 0.
Right. So these matches between teams that now we've hit the point in the schedule where you think it's a guarantee are not.
No such
Are
thing.
no guarantees anymore because of the relegation battle right now.
Which makes it brilliant, in my opinion. Okay, Josh, parting thoughts.
Parting thoughts. Again, we've gotten through EPL, got through St. Louis
I
FC.
want to make one more. Let's look at the
Hold on, let Josh finish.
Sorry.
Wait a
Russell,
second.
He's got a
Russell, wait.
Just parting shots on EPL
Right.
or parting
Oh,
shots for the show?
Parting shots for the show.
Parting shots for the show.
Okay, all right, wait. Can you hold on? Josh, did you finish before you so really...
I'm interested in what he has to say.
He's going to butt in and tell me something about this, okay?
Oh, okay.
Which is the championship. Right now, after 41 games, we have Leeds with 78 points. West Brom currently leading 4-2, and that would put them on 77 points. And the interesting part is the playoff positions. We have Brentford on 72, Fulham on 70, Nottingham Forest on 68, and Cardiff City on 64. So those are and then the next team is Derby County on 61. So that's,
I want Leeds.
Well,
you know why?
It's getting
You know
close.
why I want
They've got
Leeds?
5 more games. I want Leeds too.
Yeah.
Why?
Because they're a historic club that was always in the first division in the 70s.
Wrong.
But that's
We
my
want
reason.
Leeds. Well, no, but we have a show reason. The show reason is because a great album, Live at Leeds, by the way.
We need a team that plays in all white all the time.
Yeah.
That's what we need,
Yeah.
and that's Leeds.
Uh-oh.
That's
We don't want...
Well, I was gonna, before you go negative, remember, he's from New Zealand. They got
that's
kind of
right.
a thing for that.
Right,
So it makes
yeah.
sense.
That's the name of the name.
Hey, I
It's
had
just
dinner.
It's just the uniform, man.
I had dinner with Sakura's and her husband joined us, and he's a Kiwi.
Ah.
He was stunned that where are you from? What city?
I was born in Wellington. I grew up mostly in New Plymouth.
Neither one of those. Is Hamilton a city?
Hamilton's
I think that's where he's
an
from.
hour south of Auckland.
The dude identified the scotch that I got for my birthday by smelling it.
Ooh.
That's pretty good.
That's kind of strong up there.
That's why he was a bartender in Cambridge.
2 things to your shot. Leeds, West Brom, and I'd like to see Fulham back up again. That's just my personal preference.
Well, okay, we had some interest in that.
And
I'd like
also,
to see a game
with
there.
the Nottingham Forest match yesterday, the local police department put out a tweet that said they a call down because somebody had jumped into the river. Apparently, it was a Nottingham Forest fan who was celebrating the fact that they had won their match against their rivals as they're trying to get promotion. They did not stay for the entire match, though, because in the 97th minute, 7 minutes of added time, the other team equalized. So the police department had to point that out. I just thought that was funny.
That's nice.
My parting shot has to do with MLS, which is coming back this week, Wednesday night, opening match of the MLS back tournament. We've already had a match canceled, and postponed, because 6 players on FC Dallas have tested positive.
Wow.
So again, I'm interested to see, can we get sports back? Because these initial few tournaments are going to happen. We're going to have basketball and baseball at the end of the month. And we're seeing all the positive cases with that then, now that they've implemented this wide-scale testing. I'm hoping that it's normal and we can have some semblance of seasons across the board. But like we've already seen in MLS, it just may not be possible to guarantee the safety of these guys. We're seeing a lot of players opt out. I didn't say it when George did, but David Price, who's a big star, or at least was a big star in MLB, opted to not play this season. So we'll just have to see. But right now it's still going on. MLS is back this week, Wednesday. Most matches on ESPN.
If you want to see some sport where there are live crowds, and you have ESPN Plus, I would suggest watching some Super Rugby.
Not just regular rugby,
Aotearoa.
Super Rugby.
And that's a competition between the 5 Super Rugby teams in New Zealand. They've started up the Australian competition now too this weekend. But there was a fantastic game earlier this weekend between the Highlanders and the Crusaders, and it's just a rugby at a very high level. And the nice thing about that is a couple of recent weeks the games have been played in the rain. The field conditions haven't been great, but the stadium in Dunedin is covered, and so the field conditions are absolutely perfect. And it's just a great game. And you'll see what sport with live crowd looks like.
Live sports, live crowd is going to be a good sight. Edmundo, what do you got?
Little John Mellencamp, local boy here.
Ted, do you have something to say? Final parting shot?
Piggybacking on what you guys were saying about how the return to sport is unfolding and whether or not it will actually happen. Knock on wood, I believe the NWSL will complete their Challenge Cup and literally will show everyone how you should have approached this thing. Mm-hmm. The bubble that they're in, the way that they're basically social distance from everything, they're together, they're celebrating goals because they've been together.
Yes.
That's their group. And Lisa Baird, kudos to her, and thank God for Deloy Hansen for helping pull this event off from a financial standpoint. But mark my words, and I hope I'm not jinxing it, they're going to pull this off and complete this event. And they might be the only one that's able to do it. Kudos to these women, these smart, strong, intelligent women. And Tom, you chimed in on this in the past because you have smart, beautiful, talented women in your life.
It's the only kind to have.
They're doing this right,
And
they're making it happen.
Again, for a first-year commissioner, to have to come in and deal with this situation and potentially again pull it off is truly.
She's really their first true commissioner. And finally, most of you know my dad's at the hospital. He's staying.
Elmer!
I actually was with him when he had the event, which was a blessing and a curse. It's hard to see him like that, but the folks at his assisted living facility reacted quickly, got him the care that he needed, and they're still running tests. So, love out to my dad.
We'll keep thinking of it.
One love, Elmer. Ed, what you got to say for yourself?
Tammy Duckworth should be selected by Joe Biden as his vice presidential candidate for these reasons. A woman, a mother, she's young, she is a decorated war veteran.
Did she lose a leg?
Both of
Both
them.
legs.
She's disabled, and she, most of all, claims to be the first person to refer to our current president as Corporal Bone Spur. So, Joe, I got your glasses on. We got the same color hair.
Oh,
I'm telling you.
Select Tammy.
I believe there's one other reason you didn't mention.
She's a Democrat, and she's from a Democratic, where there's a Democratic governor, so they get a Democratic senator appointed.
Still didn't say it.
She's
She's
really
from
good at her
Illinois.
Well,
Right.
sure, all the good politicians are.
There it is.
So the sunglasses aren't a hangover there, Joe Biden.
No, it's just
Homage?
after since I've big reveal here, since I've had eye surgery, bright lights, I see them. I used to have cataracts. I could look right in the sun.
I just thought you had to keep up your image of like being the coolest guy in the room.
You have a fine head of hair, and don't stoop to Joe level.
All right. Don't stoop to Joe's
I
level.
just said color.
All right, Ed, what are we playing on the way out?
Well, I was going to play some Mellencamp, a little small town.
Oh, well, I like that.
like he, was born in a small town, and he and I are the same age.
Happy belated 4th of July to everybody.
Yeah, we forgot that, Josh, but the 4th of July was George Vecsey's birthday.
Happy belated birthday, George.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to Meg Rapino.
Yeah, et cetera, et cetera. 9 years today, I had my first hour on KFNS. I'm starting to look like I'm not going to get any more hours on KFNS, but it's a celebration of sort. This has been a lot of fun today. I love doing this. I love talking about it. I love everybody's perspective on the game, and having George was fantastic. So,
George is always a good guest.
by the way, we've been talking about the possibility of maybe not doing this live on Sundays, maybe doing it at a different time. When we started, we were on Saturdays. So who knows what the future is, because really most people watching this, if you're still watching this, or if you're watching this, you're probably watching it sometime after we recorded it. So thank you, Facebook, for keeping all our shows.
And thank you to YouTube now that we're
Yeah.
archiving our stuff.
Well done
Putting
to
those up.
Ted for getting the YouTube thing situation. So, Russell?
Score updates. We're still 1-0 between Inter and Bologna. It's the 44th minute, and in it's still 0-0 in the Premier League game between Liverpool and Aston Villa in the 29th minute. You have been listening to STL United Soccer Sunday, presented by NGK Law Firm. Until next time, enjoy the beautiful game. Thomas?
Bye-bye.